Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Balancing Act. I'm Olga Villaverde.
And I'm Montel Williams. Today, two rare diseases.
That's right. The first one is chondrosarcoma. It's a type of bone cancer that causes tumors to grow in cartilage.
And Castleman disease, a rare disorder that involves the overgrowth of cells in your body's lymph.
We're going to talk about these two rare diseases right now on The Balancing Act. It's a rare type of bone cancer that develops in the cells of cartilage. For patients with unresectable or metastatic disease, there are no effective treatment options, causing an urgent need for the development of therapeutic options. We'll visit the Sarcoma Oncology Center to learn more, but first, let's meet Peter, whose optimistic outlook is helping him fight his rare disease. We're going behind the mystery of chondrosarcoma.
I was born in Scandinavia. I got my master's and PhD in applied mathematics. Met my wife, who's American, and I moved to the United States, where I've been working in the software industry. I was on vacation, and I simply noticed a small bump on my chest. Nothing that I really thought was quite serious. I thought I had stressed the muscle, and it was not before we came back that I then got to a doctor. The X-ray quite quickly showed that it was cancer. We did a biopsy, and out of that found that it was chondrosarcoma. It was becoming clear that it was serious. I was still looking at something that we would simply overcome. Very important was also that my wife took it very positively and took it very much in the same direction. We are going to solve it.
The Balancing Act traveled to Santa Monica, California to meet with oncologist Dr. Sant Challa to understand more.
Chondrosarcoma is a very rare cancer. It will make less than 0.001% of all the cancers. Chondrosarcoma originates from cartilage, usually occurs in the long bones. It is in the pelvic bone or proximal femur, but it can occur in other bones as well.
So after surgery, as far as we could tell, it had not spread at this point. It was only in the original location. Most of the disease was actually removed. So we started discussing about whether I should take radiation. I read up on it as much as I could. The literature was really not very positive about this actually having an effect. But on the other hand, I might regret not trying at least to just stop it right at that point. Important enough to that I went ahead with it.
So when the patients have chondrosarcoma, they usually present with the pain, swelling, and bump in the body. Doctors will do X-rays or CT scan or MRI scans. Then the doctor will refer to orthopedic oncologist who specialize in sarcomas. Then the biopsy is done. Biopsy is the definitive proof of chondrosarcoma, and then biopsy will also tell us what kind of chondrosarcoma, what grade, and what treatment needs to be done.
We went for a couple of years where I was hoping that we would never see it again. Unfortunately, after about 2 years, we saw something coming back again. It spread to my lungs, it spread to my spine, spread to my skull on my head. And we had multiple surgeries, and we had another round of radiation on my skull that we actually did to try to keep it down.
Chondrosarcoma has been a very difficult disease for medical oncologists to treat. Primary treatment is surgery. The type of surgery will depend where the tumor is. Chondrosarcoma is considered chemotherapy resistant. Unfortunately, radiation therapy again does not work in chondrosarcoma. If the tumor has spread elsewhere, like lungs and other areas, the prognosis with the standard treatment is poor. Standard chemotherapies do not work, or standard immunotherapy do not work, and there is a dire need for newer treatment for these chondrosarcoma patients.
Despite many attempts by multiple pharmaceutical companies over the past few decades, there remains no effective treatment options for people with unresectable or metastatic chondrosarcoma.
So with no standard of care for metastatic chondrosarcoma, I started a clinical trial that we did, and the result of it unfortunately was not as positive as we had hoped for. It was for some time slowing down the cancer, but it wasn't stopping it. At that point, in beginning of 2020, I couldn't function anymore. I knew that I needed another option.
More behind the mystery when we return. Welcome back. Let's go back to Peter's story.
So I went to an expert and pointed to that there were something that was potentially promising that was coming up. So I said, yes, I mean, immediately let's if it's something I can sign up for, let's try it out. Dr. Chawla's clinic was one of the clinics that were participating. So I went through all the steps with Dr. Chawla's office to make certain that I was eligible. I started being functional again, and more importantly, being able to do things with my wife. We as cancer patients, I mean, we need to remember that also, that it's really hard on our family. We need to remember that.
Inhibrx, a clinical stage biotechnology company, is dedicated to helping people with life-threatening conditions. They're developing a therapeutic option for chondrosarcoma called Inhibrx 109, which is currently in clinical trial. Now, based on the seriousness of this disease and the unmet medical need, the FDA granted Inhibrx 109 Fast Track designation for conventional chondrosarcoma with the hopes of accelerating its development.
So we doctors who treat these rare situations are obviously in difficult situations, and obviously patients are in dire need. And so we are looking newer ways to treat and newer clinical trials to make this tumor more sensitive and more effective to treat. And just only recently, we have been able to get few leads which are very promising in chondrosarcoma.
For somebody like me, it gives a perspective of that we have limited time, which we don't think as much as about when we don't have diseases, that we should really make certain that every day is we get the most out of it, and we are the happiest that we can actually, and we make the people around us as happy as we can.
For more information on chondrosarcoma, visit Inhibrx.com, and you can always check out our website, thebalancingact.com. We'll be right back. This rare disorder is sometimes referred to as a mix between an autoimmune disease, an infectious disease, and a cancer with symptoms that mimic many other disorders. The path to diagnosis can be complicated and often results in frequent misdiagnosis. The hope lies in awareness and ongoing treatment developments. Join us as we take you behind the mystery of Castleman disease.
My name's Frank Garino. I'm 48 years old. I live in Levittown, New York. I got 3 amazing sons and my beautiful wife, Dina. They're my world. They're everything to me. A couple years ago, I started to have symptoms, really upset stomach, little side pains, a little bit of chest pains. Went to my primary, gave me a couple of stomach meds. As months went by, I started to get worse. Went back to my primary numerous times, and we decided to go to St. Francis to get some more intense tests, CAT scans, MRIs. They found out that my gallbladder was only working 3%. So they set me up for gallbladder surgery the following day.
Approximately 6,500 to 8,700 new cases of Castleman disease are diagnosed every year. The subtype IMCD has up to 957 new cases per year. Physician, scientist, and best-selling author of Chasing My Cure, Dr. David Fajgenbaum is a leading expert on Castleman disease. He is also on a very personal mission.
I was a healthy third-year medical student when out of nowhere I became deathly ill. My organs shut down, and I was so sick that I actually had my last rites read to me. Thankfully, chemotherapy saved my life, but unfortunately I would go on to have relapse after relapse after relapse. It started me on a mission towards trying to find a treatment and maybe even one day a cure for Castleman disease. So I'm continuing to work day after day to find that solution as a scientist, but also as a patient.
After a day in the hospital, I came home, started to get very fatigued. I started to run a little fever, and I started to develop a cough. I called my primary. He admitted me back to the hospital for more tests. They saw that my lymph nodes were swollen. Infectious disease doctors came in. They quarantined me in a special room because they didn't know what I had.
Castleman disease is a hyperinflammatory disorder where the immune system becomes activated and then begins to attack and shut down the body's vital organs.
I was in the hospital for 4 weeks. Just every day, the numbers were getting worse. Kidney function, liver function, they were just really shutting down on me. And being in a hospital and the doctors really not knowing what you have, I was really terrified.
Patients can have flu-like symptoms where they're tired and they have low energy. They can have night sweats. They can also go on to notice fluid accumulating around their ankles and in their bellies, and sometimes a cough, again, due to fluid accumulation. These are symptoms that you can see in a lot of other conditions. But the difference in Castleman disease is that these symptoms will persist. They don't come and go.
I was in the hospital. They wound up taking a lymph node out, and they did a biopsy on my lymph node. The doctors were treating me with fluids, steroids, and they were giving me chemotherapy, and it wasn't working. 2 or 3 days passed. They came back into the room, the full team of doctors, and they said to me and my wife, looks like your husband has Castleman disease. Doctors not knowing what was wrong with me, that scared me a lot.
The diagnosis of all forms of Castleman disease should be made based on a thorough clinical history, physical examination, imaging, but most importantly, a lymph node biopsy where the complete lymph node is excised and then reviewed under a microscope. Castleman disease is classified as either unicentric Castleman disease, where there's only a single enlarged lymph node, or multicentric Castleman disease, where there are multiple enlarged lymph nodes throughout the body. MCD patients with multicentric Castleman disease are the most severe cases. It's really important to classify those patients as either being caused by a virus called HHV8, or patients that are negative for that virus, which we call HHV8 negative or idiopathic multicentric Castleman disease. Those cases are the most difficult to treat because we know so little about what causes them.
My wife Googled Castleman disease, and Dr. David Fajgenbaum came up. And that's how we learned about Castleman disease. We emailed the doctor on the internet, and he called us back in about I would say 20 minutes, a half hour. He said, have your doctors call me. They're giving your husband the wrong medicine.
In 2014, the anti-IL-6 therapy siltuximab, also known as Sylvant, became the first and only IMCD treatment approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration based on effectiveness, safety, and rigorous studies. Consensus guidelines now recommend it as a frontline therapy for patients with IMCD. The National Comprehensive Cancer Network also recommends Sylvant as a preferred treatment for IMCD for plasma/mixed histology.
A couple years ago, we established the first ever treatment guidelines for idiopathic multicentric Castleman disease based on review of over 300 patients with IMCD. We recommend siltuximab first line based on it being the only FDA-approved drug. Siltuximab targets a particular cytokine called interleukin-6. Interleukin-6 is elevated in a large number of Castleman's patients, and blocking it is effective in between 1/3 and 1/2 of patients. In patients where blocking interleukin-6 is not effective, then we have to use more broad, non-specific treatments like chemotherapies or immunosuppressants.
Once my doctor started working with David Fajgenbaum, I got my official diagnosis. I was idiopathic multicentric Castleman disease. I found out from Dr. David Fajgenbaum the medicine that he recommended for me is siltuximab. 24 hours later, after my first treatment, was a real turning point for me. I woke up that morning and my fever was gone, and the cough. I couldn't believe my cough stopped. The doctors came in that day and they told me that we're coming out of ICU, we're going into a regular room. It's been 2 years now since I've been on siltuximab. I feel great. I did have some side effects. I get the little itchy skin. About a couple hours after treatment, I get very fatigued, but it doesn't last too long at all. I'm back to the normal stuff that I used to do. I'm coaching my son's baseball, and I'm back to work full time, and that means the world to me. Being on siltuximab, knowing that I have this medicine to battle this really, really bad disease, and knowing that how good it works for me is just a godsend.
Castleman disease is still poorly understood by the medical community, but one organization is posed to change that. Dr. Fajgenbaum is the executive director and co-founder of the Castleman Disease Collaborative Network.
When I started the CDCN back in 2012, I knew that if we didn't build a global community of physicians, researchers, and patients, that I wouldn't survive. Thankfully, over the last 8 years, we've made incredible progress. It's just been incredible to watch the transition that we've made from chasing my cure to chasing our cures together and keeping patients at the center of everything that we do.
For more information on Castleman disease, the research, and the treatment we've discussed, go to sylvant.com, cdcn.org, or you can visit our website, thebalancingact.com.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Remember to head to our Facebook page and our website and follow us on Twitter.
And you know what you got to do. Make sure you stay safe. Love that family of yours. See you next time.